brought more from a perspective of how consumer behavior is changing kind of the way that this industry is operated. And I think there are a lot of trends where we'll touch on. I wanted to start just by introducing our panel, and maybe I'll let you introduce yourselves and tell a little bit about where you're from, what you focus on, and I think just to get the theme started, what is the one area of consumer behavior you've seen in the last year that's changing the way you think about your business? And we'll take it from there. So, Sven?
I'm Sven Schildknecht from Deutsche Telekom, business development in the headquarters. And our purpose of being here is mainly to look for innovative companies from Israel. We do scout for innovations in telco, classical hardware, software, services for our customers. We have the entire portfolio of M&A, venturing, partnering at our disposal. So just a bit of background, and you also see some of my colleagues here. What is the major trend from my perspective? Mobile. It sounds like almost one for the last years, but we really feel the opportunity, also the pain as a telco operator of all these people going out there with their devices and doing stuff, and all this innovation which is coming from the software companies with their incredibly increased productivity as well. This is the one thing, and the other combined with this is social, which is a new communication paradigm, and I have to admit that as a telco, we have some catching up to do to the likes of the new communication paradigms, that the Facebooks, the Google Talks, the Vibers, and also the SMS substitutes like WhatsApp bring to the market. So, and we are really excited to engage with entrepreneurs, startups, and early stage companies to find out how we can work together.
Thank you. Kenji?
Yes, my name is Kenji Takeda. Takeda Kenji. In Japan, the people call the name in the order of family name first. But anyway, this is my first time to Israel, and I'm very excited. And as a panelist, I'm not the expert in telecommunication and hardware. I have been with Hitachi, so 100 billion electronic company manufacturer in Japan, and I've been with R&D, product development, and business development, and corporate venture capital activities. And I've seen the history of, computers and semiconductors and telecommunications. And today I see some exciting change in trends, especially in Japan and also in Asian areas. Introducing of smart devices, thanks to Steve Jobs, iPad, iPhone, iPod, something, connected with the mobile environment, and then to cloud computing. Those combinations will make a very drastic change in architecture of IT infrastructure, not only within a corporate environment, but also consumer environment. If you take a look at the history of computer, architecture, starting from mainframe with a master-slave model with wire, and then client-server model with a local area network, still based on a wire. And now we have cloud computing and smart devices connected by mobile, wireless. So I see some trends. Do we need not wire? Do we need Windows? So that's, I think it's an exciting phenomena, especially in the emerging countries where they don't have a wired infrastructure. But without wired infrastructure, they can use communication by wireless. So that's one thing I'd like to add more later. Anyway,
thank you. Amir?
Hello, my name is Amir Lahat, running business ventures for Nokia Siemens. I'm based in Silicon Valley in Israel. In my organization, we do both the internal venturing, which is building startups and companies inside the corporate to create new businesses and new growth for the company, as well as the external venturing, investing in external companies and other collaborations with startups. Looking for the new theme about change that we see in the market beyond the two that I already mentioned, which is mobile and cloud, is certainly two bigger changes. And maybe another interesting one to see is we see people coming from home, the young generation of engineers or others, coming much more with a more open-minded of new innovation. So 5-10 years ago, if you want to go to the office, you find better computer, better internet access, better tools. Today it's the opposite. At home, usually you have better, faster internet access, better computers, better tools to do. And that basically started to change the corporate and the enterprises, how they behave. And that's a very good change, I believe.
Thank you. Kobi?
Kobi Rozengarten, partner at Jerusalem Venture Partner, JVP, one of the early VCs in Israel, still very active, both in early stage via an incubator that we have in Jerusalem. We seed company there, and we also involve in much later stage investment around Israeli technology with a focus on media, consumer, and the infrastructure needed there. Again, I must agree with everyone that mobile is the focus, and the shift of internet to mobile, that's the major focus. And if I have to name one item, it will be bandwidth. The need for more bandwidth. 3G basically cannot support anymore the need for those data-heavy applications. And what we see is that the fourth generation and LTE basically, that is going to be the one major item for this year. I believe that 2012 is the year that LTE is coming strongly and will support a lot of those dream application in which we try to build company around.
Great, thanks. So when I think about the question, I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I watch my 6-year-old use her iPad or my wife's iPad, and it's, in my opinion, the immediate expectation that what I want on my mobile device will be there for me at every place and every location. And it's going all the way down to a 5 or 6-year-old who has that expectation growing up. So it puts a lot of pressure on you to deliver a solution that can provide that, and providing the equipment and picking the right company. So I'm curious, we have different perspectives here. What is the biggest challenge of delivering that ubiquitous broadband mobile access, and what is your single focus today to fix it?
Yeah, just to instill a little bit of interesting discussion as well. Once we are in the business of producing bits, basically, and it's great. I mean, people want more of our product. This is a very good situation to be in. Obviously, we have regulation as a big driver in the market that is also putting the pressure on the cost side and getting also our revenue under pressure. And then the second business we are in is value-added services. Let's stick to the bit producing business first. We feel when we look at some of the roadmaps that we see with our trusted and good vendors, that the amount of efficiency increases are not the ones we need in order in 5 years to be still a profitable company and entity. Therefore, we take an increased interest working jointly or also with ourselves to understand who's out there who can deliver very disruptive changes to the way we operate mobile networks that help us get this cost per gigabit down by 50% in 3-4 years. So these are the kind of levels we are looking for in terms of increasing our efficiency.
Amir, I'll ask you from a system provider.
Sure, no problem.
What are you being asked to deliver?
Exactly. So Sven is one of our customers, of course. So we see the demand coming from all over the food chain of capacity, if you would like. So starting from the radio on the mobile side, getting 4G technology for sure, new technologies of radio, new technologies of backhaul from the base station all the way to the data center. That's on the transport level. But certainly we're also introducing a lot of cloud computing as the new technology shift, how to make those networks, how to make those radio much more efficient, not just by a few percentage, but by a massive change. So those type of new cloud computing technologies help on one hand the network to be more higher capacity, more efficient, self-organizing network. but also on the value-added services. Now you become a private cloud of the carrier, can offer new value-added services as well to the customers. So those two new shifts combined together can really now dramatically reduce the cost of network, but also increase the ARPU, the regular revenue per user on a monthly basis.
Coming from semiconductor companies or semiconductor investment, we usually say it takes about 5 years to bring company to maturity, but we are wrong. It usually much more than that. It's 8 to 10 years ahead. So when we start a company today, we should think about the roadmap of the future. And the key is always partnering with those companies that can share with us the roadmap and trying to predict what will be the future standard and the future activity. It's always about bandwidth, it's about storage, it's about power, and it's about scaling the technology. So around those, we are trying to create those nice opportunities.
Kenji, do you see anything different? We've got some geographical perspectives represented here. I'm curious if you see the Japanese market different in any of the either consumer behavior or how the larger carriers are dealing with some of those issues.
Well, from the market point of view, for example, Japan market is rather different from American market. For example, the most innovative products and services are still created in the United States, like iPhone or something like that. But at the same time, for example, today, you have the cellular phone with the camera. At the time when, in Japan for the first time, the cameras are equipped with mobile cellular phone, the famous American analyst of communication laughed at that. But finally, he put the apology on his article. It's at the first time they say this is a mismatch of multiple function. But today, people are using the camera and create a new application. Also, so that kind of things is happening. People in the United States always think about the internet or something. So now we have a very we have easiness to use the browser on the iPhone. So they think always, then we can easily connect internet or something. But most people in Japan who have not the experience in using browser on the personal computers enjoy the service of internet. So that means that a different type of application will emerge in our area. And such kind of different behavior will make some exciting trends.
Maybe I can comment on this. I think on the geography side, we see different patterns in different geographies. So I'm working quite a few continents. So for example, a lot of people think that all the innovation in mobile moved from Europe back to Silicon Valley the last 3-4 years, which is true. I also live in Silicon Valley, but that's not the only place. We see a lot of other innovation happening, of course, in Israel, but also in less predicted places. So I was recently, in Southeast Asia, in Korea, Indonesia, Philippines. We see a lot of startups happening there, but for their target market is Asia only. It's big enough market, it's growth, India, China, all those places. They have enough market to go after, and they don't even count the US or Europe as a target market. So I think we can see that from the innovation perspective. Then also from regulation perspective, we're working a lot with this cloud, private clouds, public clouds for new services on the mobile. And you got different, privacy, data localization, different regulations, different country where the data have to be sit in the country, outside of the country, in the region. So also change the whole economic of those new services. So I think every region is going to have, of course, different types of drivers how to create innovation.
Kobi, you mentioned LTE as a trend this year. I'm curious if you have a geographic perspective of where and how that'll be rolled out in relation to infrastructure that's already out there and leveraging other assets in different ways than deploying new equipment.
So LTE is actually happening now in the United States, driven by Verizon. But there are most of the operators around the world are already active implementing an infrastructure for LTE and 4G. I think that this is one of the first time that the operators are pushing for technology much faster than the equipment provider and the semiconductor companies' ability to support this kind of growth. So the need is there, and it's growing very fast. We see India is coming, hopefully this year. Europe is already there, and Japan is coming, and China Mobile already announced an active LTE program this year. It was planned for 2014, and they just pulled it for this year. So all around the world, global activity. But let me speak about the global in a different way, more from the VC point of view. Usually, we were busy bringing money from the United States. All the investors, the institutions are in the state. Busy investing in companies or Israeli technology, and then the market is not in Israel, so we were busy taking those companies back to the United States or Europe. If we see a shift, is that hopefully we'll see money coming from other resources or sources. Hopefully the Israeli institution will be part of the ecosystem. And we may say that one of our best exits was a European company. So we are active all around the world, and we are busy selling companies in the Far East.
Sven, any further perspective on LTE new infrastructure build versus leveraging what's already out there in your infrastructure and Wi-Fi or 3G or otherwise that is impacting purchasing?
I think Kobi's observation is right. I mean, we have learned from 3G where we spent a lot of license money, and then it took years to take off. We are driving a lot faster this time around for rollout, which, for example, for us, Germany, one of our lead markets, naturally. We already, in a couple of cities, we have the rural obligation fulfilled to cover broadband white spots there instead of DSL, and we go to 50 cities this year. Because we do want this technology as is also very more efficient than 3G to get as quickly into the market as possible. Wi-Fi offloading is another topic which is very important for us. Also, I think in terms of user experience, it has to be as seamless as possible, and we are working on making it as seamless as possible for our customers. But we do believe that also on the customer side, people will be prepared to take different levels of quality on the mobile interface, that people are prepared to say, okay, in order to download or watch my YouTube video, if I'm on a Wi-Fi connection, I might have a little bit less of a quality than I'm connected via my 3G network for a voice call.
That's a good point. I think, again, for my example, we are probably deployed today or in different stages of deployment, probably with 40 mobile operators in the world on LTE. And we see different requirements coming from different users. So some of them would like to have much more granular, even application level, not just user level, type of quality of service, mobility, roaming, different tariff schemes we see coming now. It's not all you can eat anymore, but really more tiered payments models. Different types, of course, for voice over IP versus regular voice. So we see a much more flexibility in the business model, how operators would like now to get the return on investment on the LTE versus what was done before on the 3G.
You mentioned an interesting point, Kobi, the changing dynamic of semiconductor funding and other things. It seems like the market is maturing. There's less capital going into hardware-oriented startups, semiconductor system, but that's been a huge engine for innovation over the last 10, 15 years. The demand, the requirements on the network, bandwidth, new deployments are not decreasing. So what's going to fill that gap? Is it the large companies spending more internally in developing R&D programs? Is it more strategic investment or something else?
Actually, I don't know. I don't have a clear answer. It's for sure there is a failure. If in the past, at least in Israel, we started about 5 to 10 new semiconductor companies every year, and we see few of those are maturing now, and this year we have seen few of the largest M&A ever coming up to Israeli industry. Most of them came basically, those are investment of the year 2000 and maybe 2005, the latest. What we see today is about 1 or 2 new companies every year. Usually the big enterprises could not develop everything by themselves. The focus was on the core activities, and they needed to go and acquire those new companies in a new segment. So there is a gap now which we cannot fill. The cost to bring or develop a new semiconductor company, it's about $50 to $80 million until maturity. We don't have the fund to do that. So I'm not sure that there is an answer there. There is a gap, and I'm not sure how we can fill this gap.
Maybe food for thought from my perspective. I mean, the money goes to software, I think, because we talked about cloud computing as a service for our customers, but it is also an enabler of our network services, and you could foresee a future where in a couple of years you ran an entire telco, besides maybe the actual base station, as a service in a cloud-based, virtualized, standard hardware infrastructure, and it's just software. So, you know, whoever can write this sort of, let's say, telco in a box kind of software suite, I think has a very interesting perspective, because that's at least what carriers like we will be looking for in the next couple of years. So moving into software as much as possible because of the productivity that software offers in terms of sharing underlying standard hardware.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of points here. On one hand, on the radio side, like you mentioned, there's still a lot of room for hardware innovation.
Yeah.
And that continues to happen. So we're doing that both internally and externally in our research or business unit, as well as externally with startups or other innovation companies. Then I think beyond that, you know, coming from the optics on the backhaul all the way to the data centers and processing, there's still always going to be a need for compute and storage and so on. There's a new wave of innovation around the data centers and cloud computing and processing that again goes back to the access. So we see again that, you know, some of the companies are now pushing processing and computing all the way to the access just to get better user experience. So I think that kind of a back and forth going to continue to happen. So, you know, it's, you know, centralization versus distribution and vice versa for different functions, from caching to delivery networks to augmented reality and others. We see it happening in multiple dimensions. So it doesn't stop. It will continue. The question is how you fund it and how you create the right, you know, technology to enable that, either just software, but usually a combination of hardware and software together.
Mm-hmm. Ken, do you have any perspective from more of a research and technology formation perspective to address that question?
Well, I'd like to comment on a little bit, you know, application or service side. I believe that will drive the innovation, but behind the curtain, of course, we need a hardware innovation, of course. So, two perspectives. One is just corporate IT infrastructure. Currently, the legacy system is a client server and with Windows or something. That's fit to the office environment. It doesn't fit to the, for example, maintenance people, sales people, or anyway, the people working outside the office. But now, mobile communication and smart devices enable that kind of things without, you know, Windows or client server. Just switch to the application directly on the cloud environment. That's a corporate application side. And also consumer side, for example, I have just one small example. One of the companies I'm now serving as a board members, the name is MediaSeek. That is a major supplier of barcode and QR code readers on the cellular phone in Japan. Almost 90% of the software supplied by MediaSeek for 3G cellular phone in Japan. that was made by the joint cooperation with the Israel image recognition company. So that's a good combination. And now we are entering the new application, like, for example, if you drop by the shop or restaurant something, take a camera and read not only just barcode or QR code, even a logo or something, then immediately your iPhone pop up the video or promotion or something, information. So that kind of application is probably enhance the environment, the wireless LAN. Today, people talking about the wireless Wi-Fi for just connecting your personal computer to internet. But that kind of application will open the new application of Wi-Fi, for example. So supermarket, some restaurants are willing to put the Wi-Fi environment just for promotion or adding value of their service or something. So I think that kind of things will happen.
Sven, to that point, any reason you don't like Wi-Fi as a resource in the future? If that's true, and these applications need to be supported, and anything that concerns you?
The advantage is obviously having it on unlicensed spectrum. The spectrum is for free, but it's also a medium which is difficult to secure in its quality. What I kind of liked about this idea, and this is increasingly now taking on not my telco but my business development head, is creative business models where we have public-private partnerships, or where we have companies who help us actually build out our infrastructure because they have an added benefit. A proposal, the company, in the end, we choose not to work with them, but they made a proposal saying, like, why can't we enable retailers to sponsor femtocells in order for them to track what people are doing in the store, because they can follow where people are with their simple mobile logging into the femtocell, and it gives us the opportunity to expand our indoor coverage by having the connectivity for the backhaul for these femtocells. So creative business models that help us, on the one hand, sort of expand our usage, but also give added benefits to partners.
Kobi, your long-term investment thesis around semiconductor and hardware and tying software into that. Any perspectives through this thematic element that you'd bring to the table?
So yeah, looking at the mobile, I think that the enterprises are not a real part of this mobile revolution. It's driven by consumer, and I'll give you an example. In our organization, my PC is totally secured and controlled in a way that I cannot do anything without the IT permission. When it comes to my smartphone or it comes to my tablet, I'm king. And when it comes to the enterprise, they will need to shift. So we'll see more adoption of enterprise, not just those devices, but a lot of those mobile applications. So that's one of the trends that we see, and we focus. The other thing is the enterprise will pay money. So that's the reason that we are busy with the enterprise. However, for sure, there is an opportunity there, and we are building company around those kind of application. And when you speak about resources needed, it's not just about bandwidth, it's also about storage. And we are busy building companies around storage, namely SSD. We see it, SSD to the enterprise. The need for more data basically drive those applications. So the focus there.
No, I agree. I think the kind of the consumerization of enterprise IT is, if you can't use Facebook at work, but you walk in with your iPhone, you can use Facebook at work, and kind of the elimination of those barriers of it's one experience, whether you're in the enterprise or in the consumer area. Amir, from that perspective, I'm curious what Nokia Siemens is doing to enable that, because I agree with that trend. I don't know if you agree or what your view is.
Yeah, so we see a couple of areas of investment currently we're doing both internally and externally. One of them is like what we define as enterprise mobility. For sure, that's one of them. And we're trying to get much more of the network power into the hands of the enterprise, but really integrating that mobility into the capabilities what can offer it by the mobile operators. So that's one area. Another key area that we see for growth is what we call machine-to-machine. We see there's tremendous growth, both from the number of devices, simply I think is connected now to the mobile network, to the variety of services can be offered on top of that. Telematics, car, insurance company, medical devices, education, variety is enormous. And probably every mobile operator in the world now investing heavily in building groups in this domain. And maybe the third area that I already mentioned earlier is really about how we can use the mobile cloud to get new services for consumer, and that really involves a lot of analytics. And that we see a lot of much more digging into the huge databases that we carry, and Sven carries and others, with billions of data, pieces inside, how to get knowledge out of that, and just really monetize to offer new services. So those are probably the three major areas that we see new value.
And I can build on that. I mean, in the enterprise segment, whenever we develop services, be it our new SME cloud marketplace, including all the sort of communication productivity tools that you need, or in integrated communication suites, it's always designed to work on multiple screens. I mean, TV, not so much for enterprise so far, but it will even work there if you want to. So it is, the mindset is already multi-screen now for the services.
I guess a question that's interesting, it's a little bit more geared towards Amir and Sven from operating in the space, but I'm curious, and I'd like all perspectives here, what influences either your purchasing decisions, your roadmap, or your investment thesis? Would it be kind of your biggest customer? Would it be what Apple's doing? Is it what Google's doing? Or what's China's doing? Or something else? Start with Kobi.
I think that all of this. It's about China, it's about the large...
You gotta pick one.
So it's about the ability to take content and deliver it to the consumer. So the focus will be on basically those companies that can tie us to the consumer, or the companies that can bring us or expose us to the content. The focus will be there.
I think in my case it's less China, although it's stiff competition, but that's I think not the point. It's level of competition. Mm-hmm. What we really see is innovation coming from other domains, the Googles or the IT players who are stepping into our area. Our means mobile operators, mobile vendors like us, and basically try to commoditize the value. So if we're trying to keep our business running and growing, we need to find a way that basically we can own specific value that we can offer. Consumption as a capacity for consumers is easy, but that's not really a good revenue source. So we're more looking about the enterprise, SMEs, machine-to-machine as a new growth domain to drive that entrance from the IT side.
Kenji?
Yeah. I don't know the future, but currently, for example, in Japan, from the manufacturer's point of view, LSI or even machine tools, Apple is a leader. Any manufacturing company dealing with something related to iPhones, they increase the sales and profits so far. So that means, smart devices made a very dramatic, innovation kind of things. But nobody can tell the next major player to create an innovation like that. But at the same time, I'd like to point out that always the kind of innovation will be created by a kind of convergence of not only technology, but also market. For example, the previous session talking about clean tech or EVs, but the convergence of IT, communication, and vehicle, transportation will create the new trends. Today, most automobile companies are thinking about just shifting from gasoline to electricity. Probably it will happen continuously. But also the EV have the different, concept with together with communication capability or something. For example, now in Japan, there are many projects related to smart city. Within smart city, energy consumption control and also transportation within smart city, all these should be combined. So that kind of challenge will create something new.
Sven?
Yeah, very much like that idea is a very broad outlook to say basically the IT telecoms revolution will go through, and it has already started, goes through all these industries which are sort of our customers as telco and IT companies. In terms of our core products, short term, the consumer does provide some insight of what's happening. I would hope even longer term, but for the longer term, it is for me software companies, innovators sitting here in Israel, companies like already mentioned Google, Apple, but I would emphasize the software bit of it because, to be honest, smartphone innovation the last 2-3 years, okay, the screen, better resolution, stronger processor, but the major innovation step is happened with move to touchscreen interfaces for me. I'm curious, maybe there's more to come on the hardware side, but at the moment it's software.
We've got about 3 minutes left, so I wanted to give an opportunity for you guys to speak, kind of any closing remarks, views on the direction of this industry, and specifically if you're investing, kind of what are you really excited about, or what are your thoughts for where this whole hardware communications and the emerging software elements of it go? If you want to start.
Yes, thank you for the interesting insights first to the fellow participants. For me, what I said in terms of the carrier business, the bit producing sort of pipe business, we really need to rationalize, and we're looking for these disruptive technologies. Mostly a lot will be software based in the next years to help us drive down costs substantially. On the value added services space, which is sort of growing revenue side, we really need to find ways how we can cleverly sort of participate in the value creation that our networks deliver. And we cannot just have OTT players sort of take all the value and we just come to be the bit pipe. So that's a challenge ahead, I see.
There are many challenges, but I'd like to point out one, not the hardware, but hardware-related challenge is still allocation of bandwidth for mobile communication. That's different from countries, in the United States, in Europe, and even in Asia. So recently, the Japanese government reallocated the bandwidth for mobile communication by digitizing the terrestrial TV broadcasting. So that's different from country by country, and that's also the challenge to create innovative things.
I think in the industry, what's going to happen right now, there's a lot of convergence. Carriers, vendors, players are converging. So people who would like to continue to be in a growth mode, they need to look for more bold innovation, happening in multiple dimensions, business models, technology, the new type of solutions. We see a lot of incremental innovation, which is important to get the business running and growing, but I think we're lacking a bit more, bigger steps and bigger players who come with a bold idea. I think that's what we're looking for.
And for me, speaking my industry, which is the venture capital industry, especially on semiconductor, I see some failure that we have to fix. We'll need to renovate this industry, both venture capital. We see less resources or less investment available for those companies. While I agree with Sven that it will be more software focus, however, you still need the hardware revolution. And I'm afraid that we are not creating those kind of revolutions. So the fix will be with a joint work of the enterprise, government, and the venture capital industry.
Great. Well, it seems like we have work ahead. We have lots of fun challenges and lots of consumers who want data and video and all sorts of things. So thank you for all your insights, and it was great to have you.